This is BB1 over. Magandang hapon po muli mga ka-TryNation. Ito na naman po ang inyong lingkod, si BB1 ng Try to Contact. Yan. So, kamusta na po ba kayo dyan sa inyong mga 2-0? Yan. Background music muna tayo dyan. Music. Yan. Yon. So, kamusta na po kayo mga TryNation? Sana po ay nasa mabuti kayong kalagayan ngayon. At dahil sa sabi nga ay it's Throwback Thursday today. Ayan, so magta-throwback po tayo dun sa isang episode natin na I think that was last year with Sir James W3ZQZ, and he talked about the amateur radio band in the USA and also the band Allocation. Yan. Papa-English tuloy ako eh. Yan, asa na ba yung SOP natin yan? Ayan, siyempre. Kunin lang po natin yung ating pamunas. Yan, mamaya. Yan. Kasi mamaya po ay meron tayong nosebleed section. Yan. Anyway, yun po, no? So abangan po natin yan mamayang konti at ipapaliwanag po sa atin yan ni Sir W3ZQC. Ayan. At nung nakarang linggo, kung naalala po ninyo, ay si Sir YBX at si Sir YBY dun sa kanilang UB85 pala yun, hindi pala UB50. I was wrong. Yan. Sorry po, yan, UB85. Yan. Tama na ba? UB85 yun. Comment ka lang, sir. Kung tama nga yung review. Ayan, nagkamali ako ng lista. Sorry po, ayan. And then si Sir YBX, yung kanyang matcher antenna. Ayan, so malupit pala yung matcher talaga na yun, ano? So, I think 6 inches ba yung matcher niya? Yun. Yun po. So, siyempre, without further ado, sabi nga, it's the atin pong dakuan ang nosebleed section ng ating show. Ayan. Magto-throwback po tayo. So, pag-usapan po muli natin, o pag-usapan po ni ituturo sa atin ni Sir W3ZQZ yung may kinalaman sa US amateur radio bands and allocation. Ayan. So, syempre, kailangan muna natin siya ng konting intro. Ayan. So, without further ado, let's call on our very own Sir W3ZQZ.
So now here what we have is the 160 meter band, again 1.8 to 2 megahertz, as you see. Now if you go over here and the chart, you see what we have: radio teletype and data and phone and image. Again, and that's usually limited very much to the extra class A and B, primarily A, B, and C actually, or extra advanced and general class as you look over here in the States. In the Philippines it's a little different here. This would be only for class A, this band. You need a huge antenna for this here, 160 meter, and band. And for all practicality, this is a band that's not used that often today for all purposes. So if we go into the 80 meter band, the 3.5 megahertz band here, 80 meters. So what we have here's again a small portion for data, and also CW, which stands for continuous wave. Come over here, continuous wave, CW, or Morse code. And then we have our phone and image portions. And then we have the 60 meter band. These are secondary bands. And right here, actually, they're actually channelized frequencies that we're permitted to operate on. In the same way in the Philippines here on the 60 meter band, it's very limited on what you can do here. Usually for 80 meters, 40 meters, we're normally looking at lower sideband is the voice transmission, but in this case it would be upper, and we have our choice of continuous wave, radio teletype, PSK 31. These are the new type of newer digital modes that we have. Of course, we come over here to the 40 meter band, and the 40 meter band is also primarily used in the evening. It's a good evening band, although you can get some fair propagation with the 40 meter band during the day. So once again, as we look, we have our radio teletype and data, continuous wave, Morse code, generally in the lower portions of the band, and of course the upper portion is reserved for phone and image. So from 7 to 7.3 megahertz, also known as 7,000 to 7,300 megahertz as well. So that's what we want to remember here, that for conversion to megahertz, for kilohertz to megahertz, we're just moving the decimal point over 3 places here. So this is actually 7,000 kilohertz, 7,300 kilohertz. We used to describe the bands quite frequently in that way, but more so now in megahertz. Moving on, we have the 30 meter band, 10.1 megahertz here, mostly data, CW again, and it's just limited to that. We'll get more into the propagation characteristics of each band later on, and that has to do with the way radio waves travel in each of these bands and the night and daytime characteristics of those just in later. We go to the 20 meter band. This is a favorite also for long distance work, and here we have the again data and also CW. I'm surprised it looks like it's kind of missing here, but this is mostly a lot of CW as well in the lower portion, especially from 1400 to 14.025 megahertz. Also, the new digital modes are very popular here as well, and the phone portion. And then we have the 17 meter band, 18 megahertz as well. Again, a very small portion here. And, this is also what we call a secondary band, and then 15 meters as well. These bands here, 15, 12, and 10 meter band, or 18, 21, 24, or 28 megahertz, are primarily solar dependent. We're going to discuss that later on for these bands here, but this has to do with our solar cycle, believe it or not, for these operations of these bands. And let's actually go over to the 10 meter band here. What we have is in the 10 meter band, again, the same thing, data, CW, sideband, but the 10 meter band is normally the very beginning, is the only band where you use FM as well, that you can use FM, frequency modulation, in this particular band right now. And it's a nice band when things open up as well. So now what we'll do is we'll get into the 6 meter band here, and that is the lower half of the VHF band. The lower half of the VHF band is, again, or the start of the VHF band. 6 meters is a unique band, I can just say that, and it has characteristics of an HF as well, which means that radio waves also travel the same way they would do in the HF versus VHF. We'll talk more about that at 6 meter band later on. The 2 meter band, VHF, very popular, FM digital, 144 to 148 in the States, 144 to 146 in the Philippines here. And, again, this would be your Class D foundation class of license as well. The 222 megahertz band, particularly in the States, it's not that popular of a band for a number of reasons here. It's more popular in Europe than here in the States. And I have not worked at band. I don't know too much about the band, but this hasn't caught on too much in the States. We have a small portion here. I believe it used to be 220 to 225, but that was lost to the commercial outfits, and the FCC again limited amateur radio operators from 222 to 225. So now we come to the 20 or 70 centimeter band right here, and that is a little bit more, considerably more popular than the 222 megahertz band. Again, limited to the technician through extra class. That's not available to the foundation class, Class D here in the Philippines. And again, this is very similar to 2 meter band FM. And then we have the 900 megahertz band, and actually that band there is remote control a lot here in this 902 megahertz 33 centimeter band, and also the 23 centimeter band, also 1240 megahertz as well. It has, or we can say 1.2 to 1.3 gigahertz as well. And then we have a number of other bands available for experimental use. But overall, that kind of completes the primary amateur radio bands. Again, 80, 40, 20, 15 meters, 10, and 2 are usually the primary bands of use here in the States, and also in the Philippines as well for HF. So now what we're going to do is just a little review of the radio spectrum here. As you see, the extremely low frequency, super low, ultra low, very low, all of this here is, as you see, communication with submarines. Believe it or not, this is what they use these frequencies for. And then, of course, the medium frequency band, the AM broadcast, 530 to about 1600. High frequency, again, is where the amateur radio operators operate, 30 megahertz overall. In this band, also marine and mobile services, and VHF as well, FM, television, broadcast, line of sight, and so forth. And then we get up into the microwave band, the microwave communications, two-way radio, land mobile, and so forth. And then up further, super high frequency radio astronomy, microwave communications, and so forth. So again, this is our overall spectrum here. And then what we have here is something called ITU regions, ITU, and that stands for International Telecommunication Union. Now, the International Telecommunication Union, as it says, was originally the International Telegraph Union, and this was an agency of the United Nations, believe it or not, and they're responsible for issues that concern information and communication technology. Now, as you click that on here, what they do is they're the ones responsible here. They coordinate the shared global use of the radio spectrum, and they're the ones that oversee everything, primarily satellite, radio, telecommunication infrastructure all around the world. So the ITU here, and actually just to go back, if you go over here to the formation, you see these guys have been around since 1865. It's 155 years. So the ITU here has divided the world into 3 regions. Region 1 being Europe, Africa, the former Soviet Union, Mongolia, Middle East. Region 2, the Americas, Greenland, and the Pacific Islands. Now, Region 3, as it says here, covers the former Soviet Union republics and other 15 sovereign states here. Region 3, including Iran, Oceania as well. And here we come over here, we click on the map right here. We have regions 1, 2, and 3. So when referring to band allocations, primarily, the ITU oversees this, and then it's up to the individual countries here. And as far as what is permitted, that supersedes, of course, in some ways, the specific frequency allocations, what the ITU might allow as well. So there you have it for the regions. So let's swing over to our our band allocations here. Now this is the Philippines, courtesy of ntc.gov.ph. Here, also it's on the Philippine Amateur Radio Association website, pyra.org. Here is the frequencies for all the amateur radio services operations here, and primarily the secondary and the primary bands, HF, VHF, and then going into the super high frequencies and microwave and so forth. So again, this is available here at the ntc.gov as well as the pyra.org website as well. Also, the frequency allocations here are broken down by class, and with the foundation class in the Philippines, you see the 144 megahertz or 2 meter band, and then of course if you upgrade to C, a lot of things open up to you for the HF band here, and we'll just go up. If you were to upgrade to C, the 28 megahertz to 21 megahertz and 7 megahertz band. Of course, for class A and B, extra and general class, it's almost exactly the same as far as privileges. The extra class here, class A, has the 1.8 megahertz or the 160 meter band use versus class B, but virtually the same privileges, operating privileges for all of those bands as well. And of course, for class A and B, for experimentation, we have the microwave bands as well, 10 gigahertz, 24, and so forth. At the very least, the majority of amateur radio operators stop at 420 to 450 megahertz, with a few at 1.2 to 1300 for the majority usually, and most don't venture out into these bands here.
Yon, thank you very much, Sir W3ZQZ. Ayan, kami po ay yun na namang, you already taught us again this wonderful US amateur radio bands and allocation. Yun, so, pwede na po ba mag-Tagalog? Ayan, pwede naman siguro, ano? Ayan, maintindihan naman tayo ni Sir W3ZQZ. And maraming salamat po. Siyempre, kailangan mo ng palakpakan din. Maraming salamat po, Sir W3ZQZ, sa iyong insight na naman po dyan sa amateur radio bands and allocation. Yan. So, may frequency pala siya, no? From kilohertz to megahertz to yon. Yan. So, may HF, yan. May AM, FM, VHF, UHF. Yan. So marami talagang frequency, ano. Yan. So sa Amerika, medyo magkakabuka din yung ginagamit natin dito sa Pilipinas, ano. Yan. So sana later on, Sir W3ZQ, please train us again from the amateur band also here in the Philippines. What's the usual, so that our audience can learn and can try, because you never know. Okay, so yun na naman po. Again, thank you very much, Sir W3ZQC. Yeah. for the amateur bands and allocation. Ayan, excite the audience for the next content of James. Ayan, so what are we going to see, Sir James? Can you give us the heads up? So what can we looking forward for your next segment? Yun. Yan, napapa-English tuloy ako eh. Yan. Medyo namumutla na tayo, ano? Yan. Medyo wala na tayong dugo. Yan, hindi naman So, yun. Thank you again, Sir W3ZQC. At syempre, wag po kayong aalis. Meron lang tayong station break. Breaker, this is BB1, over.
Target acknowledging Alpha Lima, communication.
Yan, lupit ng ating station breaks, di ba? Mga kababayan kong mga ka-TryNation. Kita nyo naman, Nandyan si Sir Alpha Lima, si Alpha Romeo, si Gold Charlie, si Sir RDY, ayan, si Sir YBX, si YBY, si Sir, sino pa ba? W3ZQZ, ayan, siyempre, ang inyong lingkod, si BB1. Ayan, so later on po, dadalagan pa natin yan, kung sino-sino po yung mga call sign nila dito sa ating try to contact. Ayan, pero for the meantime, pagpasensyahan nyo na po muna yung ating nakayanan ngayong araw na ito. Ayan, syempre, bati muna tayo, Ayan, so marami tayong nanonood. Nandyan si Sir Ronel Tirona. Ayan, hello, Sir Ronel. Ganoon din naman si Enit Nelator. Ayan, kilala kita, Valentina. Hello sa'yo. Ayan, syempre si Kapatang Elena, nandyan din. Si Dan Mionas Flores, Dumalay, yan. Si Mekutochi Subrio. Yan, matitindi yung mga pangalan nila, Yan, so maraming salamat po sa watching dito sa ating Try to Contact. Yan, may nag-comment Ito si Elena Cuevo, yan si Kapata, sabi niya, happy hapon mga ka-try! Next naman, bagong setup si Sir BB1 Ay, syempre, yan, nakita mo naman, Yan, pinag-ipunan natin yan, Yan. Edit lang ng konti para lumaki sa ganyan. Yan, appreciate niya. And then, yun pala, yan. Pakita natin. Yan. Then, sabi pa niya, alam ko lang na radio frequency is yung AM/FM Yun nga din ang alam ko dati, Kapata AM/FM lang. Dati, nakikinig tayo dyan sa mga radio kapag bumabagyo. Yan. And then, pagka medyo gustong mag-unwind, Yan. And then, syempre, andyan si Sir Ronel Tirona. Yay! Ayan, so, hello sa'yo, Sir Ronel. Ayan, kamusta ka na dyan sa iyong 2-0? Ayan, syempre, pasalamatan din po natin yung ating mga advocacy partners. Ayan, sila po yung mga patuloy na sumusuporta po sa advocacy ng TryPH Media through their contribution and by promoting our website and also itong ating social media. Kaya kita nyo dyan, ayan, yung ating YouTube channel na TryPH Media, yung Facebook natin na TryPH Media, and then yung ating website na tryphmedia.com. Ayan, huwag nyo kalimutang mag-like, mag-share at mag-subscribe para sa ating mga latest show and information. Ayan. And then, yun na nga, yung advocacy partner, ito, ayan. So yung ating mga advocacy partner, ating pong syempre ang kauna-unahan ng Platinum Partners, ang RJ Brom Consulting Services, ang JRM Consulting. Ayan, at syempre andyan ang mga Gold Partners, ang The Happy Giving Trading Company, dealer of the Salad Master here in the Philippines, at ang Platinum Water Ionizer. Yan, matinding tubig. Yan, may alkaline. At siyempre ang Milk Fridge, Taiwan Bubble Tea, Malolos, and Cabanatuan Branch. At ang ating mga silver partners, ang RDY Marine Electronics, alang LMP Auto Car Care, ayan. At ang Magno Transport. At siyempre, nandiyan din po ang Shula May Merchandising, Mugs, Tires, and Battery. At ang paborito kong Lahoma Funeral Homes. We honor the lives of the ones you love. Ayan. So yan po ang ating mga matitinding advocacy partner. Maraming salamat po sa inyo. At syempre, shoutout po sa mga taga-Cabonet. Andiyan po si Sir Sunny. Sir Sunny, pagaling ka. Ayan. And then, andiyan po si Sir June, si Sir Chisel, si Sir Ronel, andiyan din. And shoutout din kay Sir Lito Manansala. Hello sa'yo. Ang investor ng AB, ano ba yun? Market something, gano'n. Ayan, nakalimutan. Pero susunod, i-advertise kita. And the rest of the gang. At syempre, yung mga taga-Bosch Philippines, especially si Sir William Go, si Sir Golden Maranan, and the rest of the staff. Ayan, shoutout po sa inyo. At saka nga pa pala, shoutout kay Sir Steve ng PLDT. Great customer service ka. Thank you so much sa pag-repair ng aming internet. Ayan, syempre yung ating family, yung mother ko dyan sa province. Hello sa iyo, Mommy. Ayan, yung aking utol, si Tol Josie, saka si Tol Noemi. Hello sa inyo dyan. Ayan, Milk Fridge Cabanatuan. Hello. Ayan. And then, yung mga utol ko dyan, si Sheila, si Eric. Hello sa inyo. Dito si Ricky. Ayan. So, ganoon din po yung aking Missy, si ERC16. Ayan, hanggang ngayon 16 pa rin siya. No? Yung height niya, 16 pa rin. Ayan, hello sa iyo, ERC16. At syempre, yung ating kapatang si Elena. Yung kanyang lifestyle ideas to try every Tuesday at 4 o'clock p.m. Ayan, so dyan na naman po natatapos mga ka-TryNation ang ating segment ngayon, o episode ng Try to Contact. At again, maraming salamat ko kay Sir W3ZQC sa kanyang amateur band and allocation. Ayan, so hanggang sa muli po, maraming salamat po again mga ka-TryNation sa walang sawang pagsubaybay dito po sa ating TryPH Media page. Ayan. So, see you again po next Thursday. Ayan. I-announce po natin. Ayan. Siyempre, kailangan magbibigay galang din naman po tayo sa ating paparating na mga holidays. Ayan. So, siyempre, andito na naman ang malaki Ito, ayan. Kita nyo naman. Ayan. Isa-set up lang natin ng konti. Ayan. So, ito na naman po ang inyong lingkod, si BB1, na nagsasabing, you never know unless you try. Over and out. Breaker, this is BB1, over.